Most people are going to lose money selling sports cards in 2025, but that's not because the market's bad. You ever wonder how these guys on YouTube and TikTok have turned this hobby into six-figure businesses? Trust me, I watch the same ones, and here's the truth. Selling sports cards is profitable, but only if you know what you're doing. In this video, I want to help collectors make smarter decisions and go through the points that are going to influence the 2025 market. I'll go through things that I think work, traps that I've fallen into, and the best ways to stay ahead in this volatile industry. Hey guys, I'm Connor, this is Cards and Canvas, and it's just a channel documenting the journey of me building my sports card and art business. And if you need proof, you know you can trust me. I'm a collector because I have a Zion case, so I'm legit. We're currently witnessing the resurgence of sports cards back into the mainstream. And like it or not, it's not really just collectibles for collecting's sake. More and more sports cards are being viewed as a financial asset. Pros and cons to that, that's the way it is. The game is changing. You cannot just rely on nostalgia to stay profitable. It takes a strong blend of intuition and timing to really get ahead of this market. Here's the reasons that I think 2025 is an excellent time for you to be getting into sports cards. Well, for one, like I mentioned, mainstream appeal, like the Paul Skeens rookie getting bought up by Dick's Sporting Goods onto this massive display for $1 million. Tom Brady is really embracing the hobby. He just started a card vault, and then Gary V's V-Friends, he's a massively successful business guy who is kind of coming back into the sports card collectibles. My opinion, I think this is because people are kind of tired of these fake, low effort digital products. We want something tangible. I like holding this Brock Bowers rookie prism out of 49. I think it's cool. It's hard to get your hands on. It's a good, exciting player. Things like that. I think people are craving the tangibility of that. And then also, kind of like Brock Bowers, there's so many young stars like Patrick Mahomes, Bobby Witt, Caitlin Clark, Anthony Edwards, Shea. There's no shortage of these superstar personalities that I think we'll be talking about in 5 to 10 years from now. And then another big pro of why I think that we're seeing this comeback of sports cards is grading is now easier than ever. You go to your local GameStop, most of us have one, you drop them off, and then in 60 to 90 days, you have a box with graded cards back. So I think that the ability for the average person to participate is just at a really good place. But there are some big issues that I see currently. I think the value of most sports cards right now is extremely inflated. Part of that, I think, is because there's a lot of problems with how people are comping their cards. Now, I plan on doing a full video about this, but there's a lot that goes into what makes a comp relevant for a certain card. Timing. Is the card damaged? Like, what's the condition of the card? Is it mislabeled? Was it an auction or a buy it now? And believe it or not, there's a lot of fake sales going on eBay right now because the way that they've changed the best offer and how it appears when you search for the recently sold. We can go into more detail about that in another video. I think a lot of this has led to overpaying and bad deals where people just feel burnt on the end of it. With that, I've met so many great people throughout the sports card hobby. Most of us are just guys that love watching sports, we're inspired by it, we grew up with it. I think half of us are just trying to build a collection. I can't take $1,000 to get a Patrick Mahomes rookie that I want. I can't take that out of my paycheck. But if I can flip $5, $10, $20 cards on the way up to that, then I don't feel so bad making that purchase. And I think that's kind of what has slowly nudged its way up over the course of time from the 90s to today. But with that, there's a lot of bad actors. In the light of the recent backyard break stuff, you can kind of get that energy from a seller. I feel like there's a lot of intuition to that, so I just avoid people that have that backyard breaks energy. Okay, let's go into some of the more legitimate concerns about the health of the hobby right now. I think a big one is oversaturation. You hear people saying, oh no, we're entering another junk wax era. If you don't know the junk wax era, basically before the parallels, before the short prints and the case hits, everything was essentially like the plain base card. They printed 5 million of them. With a Mickey Mantle rookie, nobody thought that they were going to be worth so much, so they weren't concerned with keeping them in pristine condition. So it's hard to find one in pristine condition. Later on, everybody thought these were going to be worth millions of dollars. There's been a lot more effort in keeping the rookie cards in pristine condition. So if condition's the only differentiating factor, then it's not much of a differentiating factor. So yeah, then you see the birth of the short print, out of 199, out of 99, the 1 of 1. And there's so many sets. Like, if you don't have an idea of the set hierarchy in football, do you want to buy Topps Chrome or do you want to buy Prism? That's a no-brainer if you collect football. But if you're new to the hobby, you won't know. You don't know that it's an unlicensed product. So we're kind of in this awkward limbo phase in a custody battle between Topps and Fanatics. So that can make things a little bit blurry for somebody new. You know, there's other things, depending on the set. Is this a true 1 of 1, or is it like Leaf where it's unlicensed and there's going to be 18 different 101s for each player? I think those are kind of leading to the sense of oversaturation in the card market right now. And I think here's the most offensive thing right now is the price of getting your hands on product to rip. Hobby stuff, hobby is realistically your chance of pulling anything worth pulling. And the prices of that are so astronomical. Like, I can't even tell you the price of what a Donruss Optic hobby box is because I just won't even go look. It's too high. I don't even want to buy a single pack of it. From a business perspective, you're going to be better off buying the single card that you're looking for rather than trying to rip it out of a pack anyway. But I think that's kind of what gets us into the hobby anyways. It's just fun to do. So it's nice if everybody can participate, but we're like not really in that position anymore, which I think is a shame. Retail stuff is just as offensive. You spend $30 on a box and then you pull a silver Prism of the third string left guard. Every single player that's a rookie gets a card now. And I think that's great for the player. It doesn't feel good opening product anymore. That's just how I feel about it. Maybe you feel differently. I hope you feel differently, but I think the only way we change that's with our wallet, so I haven't been buying much product. But obviously, if nobody rips product, then we can't buy the cool cards. So you gotta, whatever that means. So the next point, whenever there's an opportunity to make money, there's gonna be bad actors, right? I think the biggest one is people use these FOMO sales tactics, fear of missing out. They manipulate the consumer into buying something they are not sure is worth the value that they're buying it for. There's this emotional speculation that card prices are always going to go up for a player. You look at here's two different scenarios. Here's Jaden Daniels, here's CJ Stroud. I think that's the most relevant one right now. Jaden Daniels coming off of an NFC championship as a rookie. Hype is going to be here, right? And then you look at a player like CJ Stroud, who's coming out of a sophomore slump. He had a great rookie season, somewhat comparable to Jaden. CJ's prices are down here, and Jaden's are way up here. To me, that's a no-brainer on who I'm going to be shoveling my money towards. And then there's just complete outliers like Patrick Mahomes, who has a somewhat steady market now. But a couple years ago, it was doing the same thing. It was woo, 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 hype, hype, hype. And you still kind of hear that in the media, but it doesn't affect his card prices as much. Just if you're new to the sports card hobby, beware of the scams. Don't get too wrapped up into the gambling behavior. I think that it just put this kind of negative energy on the hobby. It just, from the outside, it can look like just a bunch of guys chasing dopamine for shiny cardboard. Like I mentioned earlier, I think that's a key part of what makes the hobby fun, but it's also, there's become a significant lack of transparency in what you're buying, and I think people are overpricing things above what they're actually worth. Now, these are all things that I think we all kind of navigate and experience in our own journeys as we grow a sports card business. The absolute biggest risk in building a sports card business is just lying to yourself about where it's at. I am so guilty of this. It's probably my biggest offense. It's caused a lot of headache for me, and that is being delusional about what my card collection is actually worth and being delusional about how much money I'm making from ripping packs. I heavily encourage you to start a spreadsheet and be diligent about being as objective as possible and keeping track of your expenses, what things are selling for. You know, things get dicey really quick when you mix a passion like sports with the opportunity to make some money. So just be careful navigating that, have fun with it, accept my warning. Let's talk about how to win, how to build a sports card business, right? To start, I watch sports. It's so stupid to say. If you don't like sports, I think that you should probably just do day trading if you're trying to flip things for money. You have to have such a strong pulse on players. I started with fantasy football. That gave me a very strong understanding of player performance and expected outcomes. That's really what built my foundation for like how I gauge risk and reward when I'm prospecting sports card buys. If you don't know sports and you just watch the card market, you're going to end up buying the wrong cards of the right player, or you're going to end up buying the right cards of the wrong player. The following tips are going to be helpful and beneficial to you, but I don't think they'll be as effective unless you take this a little bit more seriously like a business. I've learned so much about money, how it works, how it changes hands, what causes things to go up and down. And through that, it's been great to embrace my passion for sports. Spend time, learn the players, learn the trade, and have a good time doing it. My biggest advice for being profitable and enjoying sports cards: seek out fair trades and deals. I am a firm believer that most deals should walk away where the dealer and the buyer are happy with what just went down. You see too many times on the shorts and reels where like kids are trying to scam or rip off a dealer, or vice versa. You try to buy $100 card for $40 because there's this bad comp with a this card would have been a PSA 5, but it sold for $40 instead of $100 like all the other ones, so can I get it for $60? And it's like, that does happen. I've been on both ends of that. But I think it just feels bad when you seek it out. There's going to be opportunities to get things for less than the agreed upon value of things. And, that feels good when that happens. You get a good deal. There's a difference between that and just straight up ripping somebody off. I think the most consistent way to do well is to buy things a little bit below comps and then letting the market catch up even more. And then you're way in the green. That's all profit. However much the market moves, then you're in the profit. And then you can sell your card below comps to somebody. They're happy because they got a cool card below comps. You're happy because you bought the card at such a good price that you can sell it at a good price. And that's been how I've built my sports card business. And then through that, you build these long-term relationships where I have a lot of repeat buyers. I have a lot of guys at card shows that I do deals with every single time. And then one more tip: make sure you're bundling cards up before you ask below comps. The reason you can get 80% is because you're buying $700 worth of stuff from somebody. They're going to make their margin. If you're buying one card and you say, this sells for $20 on eBay, can I get it for $5? No. Can I get it for $15? No. What's the reason for them to come down? But if you come up to them like this: hey, I want to buy all these from you. Instead of making 15% margin, could you make 5% margin? Well, 5% of all this is a lot more than 20% of all this. That's just a bacon. There's an economics lesson for you. And buy players you like. And then here's the thing that I think was the hardest to learn: don't be afraid to walk away from deals. There's always going to be more cards. There will always be more cards. And then when you do buy, really, really work on knowing the set hierarchy. And then through that, know the case hits, know the short prints, look for low serial numbered cards. All of those are going to be friendly when you're negotiating later to sell a card. The reason being is they don't pop up often. You're going to have a lot more leverage selling a card out of 10 than you do selling a CJ Stroud base card. The reason being, they can go down one table for the base card and probably pick up 5 more. With the out of 10, you're going to be the only person at that show. You're probably the only one on eBay that has it listed. People just aren't going to have that leverage over you. I think that's kind of a little bit of a later move that you do after you kind of start flipping the dollar box and stuff. But early and often, look for the case hits, the short prints. They're harder to come by and they're easier to move at the price that you want to move them for. Finally, you're going to want to know the cycle of sports. There's a cycle in season and there's a cycle off season. You look at the in-season cycle, the Eagles started below 500 last year. I don't remember their exact record, but Jalen cards, everybody's like, oh, Jalen Hurts isn't a good quarterback. He's a blah, 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 blah. And, well, he won the Super Bowl, and now his rookie cards are forever elevated because of that. If you could see that the Eagles were probably going to be a playoff team, I'm not saying you had to call that they were winning the Super Bowl, but you call that they're a playoff team and they're going to have some hype in the postseason, you could have taken an opportunity there and really had some return on some Hurts rookie cards. Look for the trends like Viral plays, Saquon had a bajillion of them last year. I sound like an Eagles fan. I'm not. I'm a Chiefs fan. They just demolished my team. But viral plays will make the volume of a player will go way up, and you'll see some comps that are reaching a little bit high. Or if a player's more prevalent in the media, like Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, everybody's favorite couple, that can have positive and negative effects on a player's market. So study that, see how that's moving for certain players, and then not so much study, but just be aware of things. And I feel like if you're interested in sports, you're going to be doing that anyway. And then in the off season, that's where I feel like the more niche players come into play, where like, the fantasy football knowledge, so to say, is like Devon A-Chain, JSN. Those are guys that like the typical kind of casual sports fan probably aren't as aware of. But coming the next season, there's going to be a lot of hype around them. Oh my gosh, these are top 10 in their position, and they're in good position going into this year to succeed. And that will translate into, their card market. Look for guys that are coming off of a strong rehab from last year's season-ending injury. I don't know, maybe Rashee Rice, if he's not getting in trouble with that. But you're just looking for strong future narratives there in the offseason. And then my final piece of advice is know when to move. Don't be greedy. If you're new looking to sell cards online, then check out this video. I made it especially for you. Yeah, I think that's about it. Thanks for letting me talk your ear off. See ya.